I never imagined my own sister would one day look at me like I was a stranger worse, like I was a manipulator she needed to expose. But grief changes people, and in our case, it twisted everything we once understood about each other. It began quietly, like most disasters do. After our parents passed, Marin threw herself into efficiency handling documents, clearing accounts, organizing the funeral as if she were checking items off a list. People praised her strength. They said she was admirable, composed, a pillar. Meanwhile, I was the opposite. I grieved loudly, then silently, then in ways I couldn't understand. I struggled to return to work consistently, and eventually my hours were cut. Bills stacked up, rent increased, and the world continued spinning without mercy. I thought Marin knew these things. I thought she cared, but one afternoon everything shifted. It was a phone call, simple, abrupt. "Isla," she said, her voice tight, "we need to talk about the money." "What money?" I asked, confused. "The inheritance. I know you still have it, so stop telling everyone you're struggling. It's humiliating." The accusation landed like a punch to the ribs. I sat frozen on the edge of my worn-out sofa, staring at the peeling paint on my apartment wall, as if it could help me make sense of her words. "Marin, I didn't receive any inheritance. Nothing has come through." She exhaled sharply, like I had told a ridiculous lie. "Isla, don't do this. Mom and Dad left us equal shares. You signed the distribution documents. You got your portion months ago." "No," I whispered. "I didn't sign anything, and I definitely didn't receive anything." She scoffed. "Right, convenient, convenient." As if losing my job, moving into a cramped apartment, budgeting every meal, and crying myself to sleep were all part of some grand performance. Why would I lie about something like this? I asked, my voice shaking. "Attention." She replied coldly. "You always needed it." I couldn't breathe for a moment. My sister, my only remaining family, truly believed I was faking hardship for sympathy. I tried to explain, tried to get her to understand, but she shut down every attempt. "I'm done with this conversation," she snapped. "If you want to play the victim, fine, but don't involve the rest of the family." The call ended. I sat there for a long time, phone pressed to my ear even after the line went dead, my heart thudding painfully against my ribs. I thought that was the worst of it. I was wrong. Over the next few days, Marin's suspicion bled into everything. Cousins sent awkward messages asking if I was okay. An aunt politely hinted that I should be honest about my finances. It was humiliating and confusing. Marin was feeding them a narrative I didn't recognize, painting me as deceitful, dramatic, unstable. But nothing prepared me for the next sign. I began noticing a pale sedan parked near my building at odd hours. A stranger lingered too long behind me at the grocery store. My neighbor mentioned that a very official-looking woman had asked which days I was usually home. Something was wrong, terribly wrong. And all of it, I would soon learn, started with my sister's obsession with proving I was lying. Marin wasn't done with her accusations yet. She was just getting started. By the time the second week passed, the odd shadows lurking in the corners of my life had begun stitching themselves into a pattern. A pattern I didn't want to believe, one I hoped naively, was just coincidence or my anxiety giving shapes to harmless strangers. But the universe is rarely so kind. The first concrete sign came on a Thursday afternoon. I was walking home from work, hugging my bag close because the early winter wind had sharp teeth. The pale sedan, the same one I'd noticed before, rolled along the opposite side of the street, matching my pace just a little too perfectly. When I paused to tie my shoe, it slowed. When I crossed the street, it took the next turn and reappeared 2 blocks later. My stomach twisted. I hurried the rest of the way home, trying not to look behind me. Inside my apartment, I locked the door, then double-checked it. Twice. The next morning, someone slipped a card under my door. E. Rowan Private Investigation Services. My heart nearly stopped. I called Marin immediately. "Did you hire a private investigator to follow me?" There was a soft rustling on her end of the call, like she was sorting papers, a deliberate pause before her performance began. "Isla, what are you talking about? Don't play dumb. There's someone watching me." She clicked her tongue. You're being dramatic again. Honestly, you should talk to someone about this paranoia. The word paranoia flicked a match against something raw inside me. You're lying, I hissed. Just tell me the truth. Her voice sharpened instantly. If I hired someone, it would be to figure out why you're lying to everyone, but following you, that's ridiculous. Maybe if you weren't making such a mess of your life. I hung up. It was either that or scream, and screaming felt like giving her more than she deserved. But the card under my door wasn't imagination. Neither were the footsteps I heard behind me on my way to the bus stop, or the stranger who asked if I handled my own finances, pretending to be a surveyor. Something was unfolding around me, and I wasn't the one pulling the strings. 2 days later, my neighbor, an older woman who wore sweaters in every season, knocked at my door with a nervous expression. I didn't want to pry, dear. She began, wringing her hands, but someone came by asking what hours you're usually home. A man in a suit, very serious, very polite, said he was verifying information for a family matter. Family matter, the phrase made my pulse throb. That was Marin's wording, always formal, always phrased like she was delivering a speech. Everything clicked at once, like a fog clearing to reveal something terrifyingly simple. Marin had hired investigators. She hadn't denied it because it wasn't true. She denied it because she didn't want me to know how far she was willing to go to prove I was the liar. But something else began nagging at me. If she had hired investigators to look into my finances, wouldn't they quickly realize I hadn't received any inheritance? Wouldn't the truth surface immediately? Unless Marin truly believed she could manipulate even the truth. Or bury it. I didn't know then that her attempt to expose me would become the unraveling of her own carefully constructed life. I didn't know the investigators would dig deeper than she expected, searching for my non-existent scandal and stumbling full force into hers. All I knew was that someone was watching me, and behind that watchful gaze was my sister's determination to break me, even if it destroyed us both. The truth didn't arrive in a dramatic crash. It came quietly, like a slow leak, seeping through the cracks that Marin had tried so desperately to seal, and like most things that grow in silence, by the time I saw it, it had already become too big to ignore. The call that shifted everything came on a cold Wednesday evening. I had just finished dinner when my phone buzzed with the same unknown number from the business card slipped under my door. MS Hart, a deep voice said, "This is Investigator Rowan. I believe we need to meet." His tone was different this time. Less formal, more urgent. We agreed to meet at a small cafe near the river. Public enough to feel safe, quiet enough that I could hear every word he said. When I walked in, he was already there, a thick folder resting on the table in front of him like a sleeping beast. He gestured for me to sit. "I appreciate you meeting on short notice." I crossed my arms, partly defensive, partly just trying to hold myself together. "Why are you investigating me? What is it exactly my sister told you?" Rowan studied me for a long moment before speaking. "Your sister hired our firm to confirm suspicions regarding your financial claims, but the information she provided raised some inconsistencies, and my voice felt small." He opened the folder. The first page showed a document with my name, my signature, but I knew instantly the loops and lines weren't mine. "This," he said, tapping the page, "is the authorization form supposedly allowing your sister to manage your portion of the inheritance." I stared at it, breath tightening. "I never signed that, I'm aware," he said calmly. "Handwriting analysis confirmed it, and that's not the only document she forged." He flipped through page after page, transfer receipts, bank statements, authorization letters. Each one tied Marin to something far uglier than a simple misunderstanding. She hadn't just lied. She had orchestrated an entire financial scheme behind my back. She took everything. I whispered. "My entire inheritance?" Rowan nodded. "She diverted it into personal investments and concealed the withdrawals. At first, we assumed you were deceiving her, but her reaction to basic inquiries suggested otherwise." "What do you mean?" "When clients hire us," he said, "we verify details with financial institutions. Your sister resisted that step, aggressively. It's unusual to hire an investigation, then block it from proceeding." I could almost picture Marin smiling, polished, composed, carefully crafting her lies, and beneath her mask, the panic she hid from everyone. Rowan closed the folder gently. MS Hart, I need to be honest. Your sister didn't hire us to find the truth. She hired us to build a case against you, but the evidence shows the exact opposite. Something inside me cracked relief, grief, anger, betrayal, all tangled like knotted wire. What happens now? I asked. That depends on you, he said. We can file a formal report, but you should know this will have consequences. Consequences? The word felt heavy, almost foreign. It suggested justice, something I'd stopped believing was possible where Marin was involved. That night, I walked home with the folder pressed to my chest, feeling its weight like a second heartbeat. Everything I had wondered, feared, and doubted was true. My sister hadn't just accused me unjustly. She had built her entire story on a foundation of fraud. And soon that foundation would begin to crumble, because now the truth wasn't in Marin's hands. It was in mine. I always believed that justice, when it finally arrives, comes roaring in with drama, like thunder or righteous fury. But when Marin's world began collapsing, it didn't sound like thunder at all. It sounded like paper. Quiet, thin, undeniable paper. Investigator Rowan handled everything with professional precision. After our meeting, he prepared a formal report and forwarded it to the family attorneys, the same ones who had handled our parents' estate. I didn't have to speak to Marin immediately. The documents did that for me, but I didn't anticipate how quickly the truth would ripple outward. By the following week, my phone lit up with messages from relatives. At first, gentle questions, then alarmed calls. Then outright disbelief, is it true? Marin took your inheritance. Why would she do that to her own sister? The whispers spread like wildfire. For years, Marin had been the polished one, the responsible one, the shining example. Now every person she'd ever tried to impress was hearing the truth from the one source she couldn't silence: evidence. When Marin finally called me, her voice was sharp and panicked. Isla, we need to talk, now. I agreed, not because I owed her anything, but because I needed to see her face when the lies finally stopped working. She opened the door before I even knocked, looking nothing like the woman who had once smirked through accusations. Her eyes were hollow, her hair unbrushed, her confidence fractured. How dare you? She hissed the moment I stepped in. You turned everyone against me. No, I corrected softly. You did that. She threw the report onto the coffee table, pages spilling everywhere like guilty confetti. This is exaggerated, twisted. They misunderstood my intentions. You forged my signature, Marin. Her jaw twitched. I had to. You weren't capable of managing money. You would have wasted it. I was protecting our parents' legacy. Protecting it by putting it into your personal investment accounts. I asked, raising an eyebrow, very noble. Her face reddened. I earned that money. I handled everything: lawyers, funerals, accounts. You did nothing. My grief wasn't a competition. I whispered. For a moment she faltered. Something vulnerable flickered in her eyes, something almost human, but it disappeared the moment she realized vulnerability wouldn't save her. You can fix this, she pleaded suddenly. Tell them you misunderstood. Say you gave me permission. Tell the investigators they got it wrong. No, Marin. It wasn't anger. It wasn't cruelty. It was clarity. I'm done covering for you. She reached for me, desperate now. Isla, please. If this goes to court, I could lose everything. I stepped back. You already lost me. Her breath shook. For once, she had no clever lines, no dramatic accusations. Only silence, the kind that grows when lies run out. The legal process unfolded exactly as the investigators predicted. Marin was held accountable. Restitution, mandatory financial oversight, and a permanent stain on the image she'd polished for years. Nothing extreme, nothing vengeful, just consequences. As for me, I finally received what my parents intended for me, a chance at stability. I moved into a better home, built a life not overshadowed by accusation and bitterness, and learned to breathe again. The sweetest part of all wasn't the money or the vindication. It was the peace that came afterward. Marin had hired private investigators to destroy my credibility. Instead, they uncovered her truth. Her downfall wasn't my revenge, it was her reflection, and I walked away knowing something beautiful. Sometimes you don't have to seek revenge. Sometimes all you have to do is let people expose themselves.